I call to order the November meeting of Crewe Town Council. Let's go ahead and start with a moment of silence. And during our moment of silence, let's remember that this week is Veterans Day, and especially the 75th celebration of Veterans Day since the end of World War II. Thank you. If we can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Councilman Reed, would you do us the honor of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Today we've got a very special presentation and a special guest who's joining us via Zoom. So I'm actually going to take a spot at the podium so I can read this certificate of this resolution, and so that Lieutenant Colonel Tao can see us. A resolution congratulating Regina Suzanne Tao on her promotion to rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Whereas Regina Suzanne Tao moved to Crewe, the town of Crewe, with her family in 1992. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao attended Nottoway High School, where she served as an NJROTC Battalion Admin Officer and Operations Officer, completed the NJROTC Leadership Academy, received an NJROTC scholarship, lettered in co-ed soccer and forensics, participated in the Nottoway High School Band and Color Guard, was inducted into the National Honor Society, and graduated with honors in the top 10% of her class in 1996. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao graduated magna cum laude from Barry University in Miami Shores, Florida in 2002, with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and went on to receive a Master of Science for Nursing, Pediatric Clinical Nurse Specialist from the University of North Florida in 2002. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao was commissioned on July 15, 2004 in the United States Air Force, where she has served 16 years active duty. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao served our nation through deployments to Balad Air Base in Iraq from January to May 2008, and Al Dhafra Air Base in Southwest Asia from October 2016 to April 2017. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao was competitively selected for and completed the Air Force Institute of Technology Civilian Institution Master's Degree Program and Nurse Corps Information Management Information Technology Fellowship, has received AMIA 10x10 IT certification, is a graduate of the Defense Acquisition Leadership Academy, and has been selected for Project Management Professional Boot Camp in January 2021. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao has received numerous awards through her service, including the 2008 Pacific Air Force's Company Grade Officer of the Year, Squadron Field Grade Officer of the Year for 2015 Eglin AFB, Meritorious Service Medal, 3 Air Force Commendation Medals, an Iraq Campaign Medal, a Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, a GWOT Expeditionary Medal. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao currently serves as an Executive Officer and Action Officer for the Solution Delivery Division and Deputy Assistant Director for Information Operations in the Defense Health Agency in Falls Church, Virginia. And whereas Regina Suzanne Tao is currently the Project Manager for COVID-19 Vaccine IT Planning, a board-certified pediatric clinical nurse specialist and certified pediatric nurse, and a member of the Sigma Theta Tau National Nursing Honor Society, Society of Air Force Nurses. And whereas on November 1st, 2020, Regina Suzanne Tao was promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Air Force. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Crewe Town Council and Mayor do hereby congratulate Lieutenant Colonel Regina Suzanne Tao on her extraordinary accomplishments, and be it resolved further that the Clerk of the Town of Crewe prepare a copy of this resolution to present to Regina Suzanne Tao with the town's gratitude for her continued service to our nation. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Congratulations, Lieutenant Colonel. And we will go ahead and get copies of these to you. And you're free to watch town council meeting, or you can, it's entirely up to you.
I might learn something. I just want to say thank you guys so very. But seriously, thank you guys so very much for doing this. This is a decently sized accomplishment for a Nottoway grad. So I'm really proud to represent class of '96. Woo! And thank you so much for doing this. It's
Yes, ma'am. And,
humbling. Let's put it that way.
thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda, let me get out my agenda.
Leave while you can.
Yeah.
Okay, public hearings. We have a couple public hearings tonight. The first one is on the town charter. Brian?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, as discussed at your September 23rd, 2020 work session and October 13th, 2020 regular meeting, I drafted proposed amendments to the town charter. The primary purposes of the proposed amendments are to establish the most efficient and effective structure, to assist the governing body and staff achieve success, clarify roles and duties under the council manager form of government, provide stability on council via longer and staggered terms, and to depoliticize the position of police chief having it appointed and supervised by the town manager, the same as other department heads in the town positions and as done in many other localities. Based on your initial feedback, particularly as it relates to the position of police chief, I've outlined 3 options for your consideration. Option 1 includes amendments previously discussed, including granting the town manager the direct hiring, firing, and supervisory authority over the police chief. It also includes some language regarding the town manager supervising the town clerk. Option 2 includes amendments previously discussed, including granting the town manager the direct hiring, firing, and supervisory authority over the police chief with the consent of council via majority vote. Option 3 includes amendments previously discussed. However, the police chief would remain an appointee of town council. The town manager would supervise the chief of police and town clerk. However, any suspensions and terminations recommended by the town manager would require town council approval via majority vote. In terms of recommendations, I do recommend that council approve option 1 and authorize sending those amendments to our state legislative representatives requesting consideration during the 2021 General Assembly session. And should council not approve option 1, I would recommend council approve option 2, which is preferred, or option 3 with the same before mentioned actions with a simple majority vote.
Are there any public comments for the proposed changes? Or against the proposed changes? Any public comments? Any public comments? Hearing none, public hearing is closed. Next up, public hearing regarding wastewater treatment plant oxidation ditch cleaning project and community center acquisition improvements. Request to adopt bond financing resolution. Mr. Thrower.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, as you're aware, the town is proposing to issue a general obligation bond in an amount up to $925,000 to be used to finance the wastewater treatment plant oxidation ditch cleaning project and acquisition of improvements to the community center. Mr. Cooch is with Davenport and Company is here to discuss the financing with you when we get to the action section. And I do recommend that you adopt the bond financing resolution.
Please.
Thank you. And I've just got a brief handout to go over the financing components of this. So just pass that out. Thank you, Mayor Meskovic and members of council. It's good to be here tonight in front of you for the town's consideration. I'll just take this mask off for a brief period of time. Be here in front of you for the town's consideration. As you know, we had been engaged by the town here to serve as the town's financial advisor. During the course of this work, we've been working with town staff, Brian and town staff over the course of this past late summer in looking at potentially a financing mechanism for the town's oxidation wastewater treatment plant needs, as well as another capital expenditure that came up, which is the community facility that's part of this public hearing tonight. What we've done is, in this little handout, we've gone through and prepared a summary of what we'll call competitive solicitation of potential bank financing alternatives. And I'd like to go over that with you and kind of talk through the numbers here for your consideration. On page 1, we did, on behalf of the town, look at distributing bank requests for proposals. Typically, we send these RFPs out to local, regional, and national banking institutions, upwards of 90 to 100 different banks. It's in our database, in terms of banks that may be considered potential financing alternatives. What we did as well on behalf of the town as its financial advisor is we evaluated 2 potential interest rates that the town has on some existing debt for potential refinancing alternatives. As we know, refinancings do depend on market conditions, and we have been of late seeing increasing market rates that are coming through. So we did want to at least solicit that and investigate the ability to refinance for interest rate savings. So we did that with this RFP. We segregated into 2 basically potential financings. One was the 2020 A bond, which was essentially the new money that's under consideration tonight for the oxidation ditch and wastewater treatment plant improvements, as well as the community facility, which is part of that bond. The 2020 B bond, we requested the potential ability to refinance for interest rate savings, and we'll go through those results here in the next couple of pages. Ahead of this meeting, we received 2 bank proposals that we looked at and kind of worked with the banks there, specifically BB&T and Citizens Bank and Trust. A couple of the other banks that did give feedback. They liked the fact that there was a GO bond in terms of the credit. They also liked the fact that the town's finances were relatively solid and stable. However, the size was just a little too small for their appetite at that point. If you'll turn with me to page 2, to give you a snapshot of the 2 proposals side by side. BB&T for the 20, what we'll call the 2020 A bond, which is the new money, provided a 2.18% fixed interest rate for the life of the loan. That is ultimately a 15-year amortization. Part of that amortization is going to be paid off sooner, which is the oxidation plant and utility needs. That's amortized over a shorter period of 10 years. When you consolidate it all together, it stretches out to a maximum of 15 years for a final rate. The 2020 B bond was a potential refinancing of 2 existing loans. They provided a 2.45%. Again, that was fixed for the life of the loan. But we did note, as we looked at the analysis, that rate was just not low enough for interest rate savings to make sense. Sometimes when you look at that type of transaction, depending on the rates you get for refinancing, even though it might be lower, it may not make enough sense to do the refinancing at that point. In looking at the other side, under column C, Citizens Bank and Trust did provide a competing rate, which is about 3.15%. What's important to note is that rate is only a 5-year rate. So that would reset every 5 years. And when you look at the reset, it would actually reset at, even though it's considered tax exempt today, reset at a taxable index. So that's not necessarily the most cost advantaged or favorable term and condition from a rate perspective. The BB&T proposal also allows for prepayment every 6 months. That is to say, as the town looks at it down the road, to the extent every 6 months when a payment comes up, you have the ability to prepay the entire balance if you should choose to do that with a small prepayment penalty. And again, this is a tax-exempt bank qualified rate. So the 2.18% is offered in that category, and that allows the banks to give you what we'll call a more tax-advantaged interest rate from that perspective. This rate is good through December 14th of 2020. So when we look at thinking about next steps here, what we would see is should the town proceed forward with this loan and this transaction, the rate is good through December 14th, so we have until that point in time to work with the bank, finalize the numbers, and get all the documentation in order from that perspective. Lenders Council, BB&T did request and did require a Lenders Council from the perspective of closing costs. That's built into the closing cost of the transaction. It's important to note that that $9,000 is for the 2 loans. So if we do just one loan, it is $6,000. So it's a little bit less than that when we look at it from that perspective. In terms of going to the next page, just some key observations as we looked at this. Based on our review and what we've seen in the markets with other lenders as well, we believe the BB&T Bank proposal provided the best terms and very competitive financing parameters in terms of terms and conditions. That rate, it's important to note, getting a rate locked in for 15 years for the life of the amortization is a very good feature. Oftentimes we see loans where the rates are, as again, 5 years and then reset, or maybe 10 years and then reset. You're subject to interest rate change over that time. That's not to say you might not, you may have the ability to win in that situation, but there's always the upside where the rate would go up. Again, it's attractive financing for both the wastewater treatment plant, the oxidation ditch, and the community center. I did say we have the ability to prepay that every 6 months. I think the more important thing as well is this, with this cost of financing and the ability to amortize it over the life of the projects, it allows the town to preserve its fund balance and reserves that we think are needed as we look at the financial review of the town, needed as it anticipates the much larger project, which is a bigger, heavier lift, which is the water treatment plant needs going down the line. And lastly, the debt service, as we look at it on the next page, does fit within the town's budget. We did talk with Brian and town staff about what is incorporated into the budget, the ability to repay it sufficiently over time without straining the town's finances. And on the last page 4, again, this is sort of a matrix that really just highlights what the approximate project size is when we look at both of the 2 projects, the wastewater treatment plant, the oxidation ditch, estimated to be about $500,000. That is for the oxidation ditch plus additional wastewater treatment plant needs that can be rolled into this financing at a very cost-effective rate. The important thing to note is the initial reason why the public hearings for a much larger amount is the initial estimated cost of the oxidation ditch cleaning is a lot higher. So this is actually coming out lower, and it's allowing you to incorporate some additional needs that you may not have the ability to do. The community facility, we're estimating about $118,000 in terms of net project dollars. We understand the purchase price is in the $100,000 range, plus there's an ability to put a little more money into it because we're looking at a not to exceed about $125,000 per the public hearing for that piece. Both of the interest rates, again, about 2.18%, and the repayment terms, as we see there. If we look at the oxidation ditch and the utility, that's about a $59,000 on average payment over 10 years. That's what we think is suitable with respect to the life of that ditch in terms of needing cleaning every 10 years. So that does amortize it, fully pays it off at that time frame. The community facility, that's an actual real estate bricks and mortar building, and that is repaid over a 15-year time frame, which is good from the perspective of real estate being repaid sooner rather than later. I'd love to have a 15-year mortgage, but sometimes it's just not feasible. But that being said, that ends up being about $9,800 on an annual basis over a 15-year time frame. Last, I'd like to say on the timeline, and I apologize as the dates got shifted forward by one day. November 9th is where we are today. This is the town council meeting. This is the consideration of the town selecting the winning proposal, having a public hearing, and then adopting the resolution to proceed forward with the financing. On November 10th, which would be tomorrow, we would notify presumably BB&T if they're the so intended bank to proceed forward with. And then the balance of November and through, we have up until December 14th, but we anticipate the balance of November finalizing the numbers, the legal documents with both the bond counsel, Simmons Anderson, as well as the BB&T side, the bank side, their counsel, and then enabling us to close hopefully on or before November 24th, which would be the week of Thanksgiving. With that, that's my my presentation of the preliminary results and the estimated impact of the financing. If there are any questions, would you like to?
Thank you. Are there any questions from council? Councilman Davis?
So if I understand what you're saying correctly, we're doing away with the second loan option for the consolidation and restructure. So we would be looking at a single loan with $69,000 annual repayment, of which somehow they're gonna amortize it so that a portion of that gets directed towards the community center debt, and the other portion, that'll actually be a physical split with the lender.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So do you know if it's possible if we decided to escalate the payment schedule on that real estate property?
You can if you want. If we've got the proposal that's good through basically the 15-year time frame. If you so desire and have the ability to do that, we can work with the bank and say, okay, if we shorten that to 10 years, then we could do, is that your question?
Well, no, I think more along the line, you said that we have the twice a year or once a year, we have the opportunity to pay down
Correct.
the debt. If we chose during that period, can we direct the funds that we wish to pay down and say, we'd like this to go towards the community center portion of the debt as opposed to paying down any extra on the oxidation?
Oxidation ditch. I'd have to get back with them typically because we do have the ability to structure two separate streams of repayments.
Okay.
That is, even though it's two separate structures and you'll have the numbers to back that up, that's folded into one bond. So I'd have to go back to them and say, okay, what does that, how, is there ability to do that? My suspicion is if we have the oxidation ditch would basically be the 10-year time frame. We have a little bit of 5 years of the community facility. If you did pay down that a portion of the debt, that would shorten that last 5 years. So it effectively would prepay that portion.
And Phil, if you remember when you and I were talking about this prior to purchasing it, we were looking more at a 7 or 8 year AM, just to see where the cash flow, based on what the income of the facility might be, versus the kind of the cash flow. So if they're willing to do that, that's even better, because then we can, every 6 months or a year, we can decide if we want to put something towards that, shorten that term, and get that community center out of that, rather than dragging it out 15 years, not a position either.
Sure.
I'm good.
Any other questions from council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so are there any members of the public wishing to speak in favor or against the proposal? Anyone wishing to speak on the proposal? And anyone wishing to speak on the proposal? If not, public hearing is closed. Next public hearing, Dominion Energy, request to grant easement. Brian.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, Dominion Energy has requested an easement from the town of Crew to cross town property located alongside Tyler Court Lane. The tax map parcel number of the affected property is 18A2311. Per the attached plat, the easement area follows an existing overhead line. And it is my understanding the easement is needed to place another pole within the easement area as part of Dominion's strategic underground program. Per section 15.2-1800 of state code, a public hearing is required on this matter. And I believe several folks with Dominion and Pike Engineering, Selena Frederick, Pike Engineering, are in attendance tonight to kind of give you an update on what they're requesting.
Please.
Good evening, Town Council. Thank you for having us, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, basically what we're doing, I don't know how familiar you are with the Strategic Underground Program, but it was a program started by Dominion in conjunction with the SCC. It basically took the 10% of the worst outages through their area and wanted to take them from overhead and put them underground. And this will help with the reliability and sustainability of the entire system for Dominion. And so basically in order to do that, we have to partner with homeowners as well as towns across our area to grant us easements to be able to bury the underground cable to reach the people who will be affected by the conversion from overhead to underground.
Will you share?
Actually, I have another one here. And so basically, what I handed out was a scoping document which we received from Dominion Energy. I'm Charles Gullet from Pike Engineering, by the way. Jerry Toad, Selena Frederick. This scoping document, if you look, there's a round circle, like a black dot on the very top of it, on your proposed property. That is where we are proposing to put a pole that we would use as a terminal pole in order to feed the residences underground from there, so.
Now, while this program does benefit directly some individual homeowners and land property owners, it benefits everyone overall with the sustainability and reliability of the service that everyone will receive. So yeah, that's a question we get a lot is, well, it's only benefiting these homeowners, but it really benefits everyone. So when we do have an outage, we can take away the troubled lines and they can spend more time focusing on everyone's lines.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Just trying to make the maps line up.
Give you a minute to look at that. Okay, any questions from council? Okay. Just want to make sure. I do have one question. We are looking at installing an additional light on one of our roads that is already has that underground line buried. Would Dominion be willing to include that in this project in exchange for the easement?
Where in, I guess where,
A block away from where you're working.
okay. That is something that we can pass to Dominion to see what they would say on that. Most of the time, any new installation coming outside of the scope of our project. So a little about how our projects derive. We go off of fusing devices. We go off of protection devices. So per the SEC, we are allowed to do work inside of that device. So we take that device, we go underground from that device has a certain amount of outages per year, that's what qualifies it. If we are outside the scope of that device, 99% of the time they want us to go through their local offices to have that done. But it is something that we can ask, and I can include Mr. Thrower, I have him, we've been in contact before with a couple different projects, and so I can't say yea or nay today, but it is something that I can ask. Like you said, it's a reliability of this partnership. So this is one of, I assume will be many that we have in the town of Crew. We have a lot coming through. We've had East Tennessee, East Pennsylvania, East Georgia, We've been on Custis, so we've been all around the town trying to get these lines underground for you guys, for your residences. It's a really great program. We're excited for it. We hope you guys are too. But I can get back to you guys on that question.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions from council? Any comments from the public, since this is a public hearing? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'd like to get a map of what of your plan. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? Any other public comments? Hearing none. Public hearing is closed. Okay, next up on the agenda, approval of minutes and agenda. I am going to go ahead and move a couple items around on this, given that we do have individuals here who I assume are waiting for us to move through some of those items. So we want to be sure to get them out first. So item 10A, I am going to move to after F. So 10A falls after 10F. It will be the last item under new business. And then, we also have, I am also adding to item number 13, closed session. I am adding Code of Virginia Section 2.2-3711A1, personnel, discussion of council appointees to that section. So we'll be going into closed session to discuss both A8 and A1. Is there anything else that council wants to add to the agenda? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve the minutes and agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Davis, second by Councilman Yates. All in favor? Motion carries. Next up on the agenda. Public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. If you would approach the podium and give us your name and
Mr. Director, for the run some more, everybody, I just do them all for you.
okay. Well, we can share.
Yeah.
Some down that way, some down that way. Maybe one more down this way. Yes. You can share right.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and members of the town council crew. My name is John. It's John Pettis, and I'm a resident on 300 block of Rock Castle Avenue here in the town. For a number of years, I have concerns about maintenance, roads, and more specifically, the alleys behind residential properties in Crew. While I have a working alley behind my house, I was told by supervisor, sanitary crew, and the town manager, store, that because my trash is picked up in front of my house, shrubberies and tree limbs and other yard waste, such as leaves, should be moved and picked up from the curb of my home, yet there is no curb. And the alley is not fully accessible. Mr. Thorne did do a walkthrough last week and indicated he will further investigate because he was new to the position. I want to go on record of highlighting this problem and making sure that plan is put into place to address it. The alley behind the south side of Rock Castle Avenue, which is a public space controlled by the town, have been poorly maintained. The alley is not paved, and because of years of little or no maintenance, large trees and other invasive plants have taken root. There is a sewer line under the alleyway that is prone to roots invasion. Just as you are dealing with other long-deferring maintenance issues with the drainage system, unless this issue is addressed, you would have another major environmental problem of backup sewer and sewage or raw sewage in private residences. Let's not forget the town has previously been sued on this issue before. Finally, I want to point out that some section of the alley cannot be accessed because someone during previous administration thought it was a good idea to allow private citizens to purchase alleyway behind their home. While I am not proposing that these sales be undone, the town needs to proactively look within these homeowners to make sure everyone is clear about who is responsible for maintaining these areas and who is liable should damage occur with the sewer system. And should lines need to be replaced, will they bear these costs? The town or the homeowner? I would appreciate I would appreciate a timetable on how you plan to move forward on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. Any other public comments?
Well, I just want to ask one
Yes,
thing.
ma'am, if you can come up to the podium.
I'm wanting till 2 or 3 guide me. I just want to know, so he said that some homeowners own the property behind in the alley there?
I am not sure. Brian, do you know?
Without any specific information, I don't have the GIS and plats in front of me, obviously, so, yes, I did talk with Mr. Pettis the other day, and he did a tour of his area for about 45 minutes at least, late Friday afternoon, so I will be following up with our Public Works Director to ascertain the exact situation of what's going on versus what the code says.
So do you guess that that's some of the reason that we're having such problems in these alleys, that's not being taken care of? Is because the owners own this part of the alley?
What problems?
Well, I mean, holes, that you can't get through the alley, and the pipes sticking out of the alley, in the alley, the sewer pipes and stuff.
The issue, just like there is in many towns and cities, on these paper streets, paper alleys, they're unimproved. So a lot of these town alleys are not improved by pavement. So they either have gravel, or they're just straight grass, or they could be just straight woods. So there is no per se requirement that the town improve alleys and streets, especially in the alleyways. So that's some of the issue with the gentleman.
So you mean the town doesn't have to do anything in those alleys?
That's correct.
Oh, good. Well, so how come some of the alleys have pavement and some doesn't?
I will answer questions from council if they have. I'm not getting back and forth with.
I believe there's only one alley that I know of that's paved. And that is the one behind Crew Baptist Church. To my knowledge, that's the only one that I've seen. I know the alley behind my house is just rotten. And, but the garbage trucks do go through and pick up from there.
Yeah, well, the garbage trucks is a lot of what makes the holes.
Yeah.
So to answer Councilmember Bowen's question, there is no requirement that the town, just like a street that the town pave, et cetera, a street.
Yeah,
A paper street can remain a paper street, a paper
Yeah.
alley can remain a paper alley, and it can be improved to the level the town or city want it to be.
No, I've never known of them to pave the alleys. I mean, if it's up to, if a homeowner wants to spend the money and pave an alley, I guess they can. But, and I don't know of any that are owned by private citizens, to my knowledge.
Yeah, that's really what my question is.
Yeah, I don't,
Councilman Davis, you have a question?
It was before my time, but wasn't part of the deal struck with Luckstone?
Yes.
That they would be providing us so much tonnage a year of gravel specifically to maintain our alleyways? And if it was, when was that agreement scheduled to start? And is that something that we just haven't followed up with, or does it not start till another date?
Well, they gotta start making rock.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
I didn't think the quarry opened yet.
hadn't begun
So it was
operation.
limited to production coming out of the new quarry. They weren't gonna provide it out of their active quarry?
I believe, I think it was once they commenced operations here, they would start providing the town.
Wow. That gets worse every time somebody says something about it.
Okay, any other public comments? Hearing none. Review of bills. Are there any questions of council on the bill sheet? Hearing none. Moving on. Town manager's report.
You have the report attached to your packet. I'll answer any questions you may have.
Does council have any questions of the town manager on the town manager's report?
I'd like to back up to the expense report real quick.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
I did have one thing marked, the police records management system for $11,200. Is that a one-time expense? That's something new we put in? Is that an ongoing bill? I don't remember seeing that.
Yes, it must be,
It's only, it's once a
it
year.
must be once a year.
Yeah.
So what is that?
Required update that the PD had to have for their record keeping
That there
and
is
all.
CIC reporting and stuff like that?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Good, thank you.
Okay, back to the town manager's report. Any questions, comments, concerns of council on the town manager's report? Okay, moving on. Mayor's report. Council may have noticed, and you have it in your packet, I did issue a proclamation for the month of November. A proclamation designating November 2020 as a month of service and reflection in the town of Crewe. In addition to that, we've started a new Facebook initiative for this month, highlighting World War II veterans who were of or affiliated with the town of Crewe. And it's about 2 a day that we display on the town's Facebook page. And Councilwoman Foss and Councilwoman Yates. If we can plan to meet tomorrow, either, I don't know if we have a lunch break scheduled for tomorrow, or immediately following the tomorrow's meeting to talk through a certain initiative.
That's probably not, I'm
Okay.
probably not gonna be able to do that.
Okay, well, we'll talk.
I
Let's
do Wednesday, but,
potentially Wednesday. Okay, we'll talk.
okay.
Any questions for me about my report? Moving on to Tessie, town
Yes.
attorney's report.
Thank you very much. I have been busy with basically everything on this agenda that council has in front of it. In addition, I do have, I drafted the public hearing notice for the easement from Dominion Energy. And just so you all will know, it's kind of a weird thing that Dominion Energy has to have, there has to be a public hearing before this because it doesn't seem, at least, in the scheme of selling real estate, to be that big of a deal, I guess, depending on who you ask. But with that being said, one of the requirements in 15.2-1800 is that there does have to be a public hearing before the town sells or gives any sort of interest in the land away. So that was the reasoning behind that, in case anybody was wondering. And then if you all have any questions for me, let me know. I apologize, I did not get out my memo today because I was held up in court the majority of the day, but I will be sending out one tomorrow if anybody is interested or wants it. And of course, if you all always have questions, just let me know.
Thank you. Any questions of the town attorney?
Is-
From counsel of the town attorney, I'm sorry. Hearing none. Town Tessie, with your written reports, would you mind sending them in time to be included in the packets? I think they got it
Yes.
Friday before the meeting.
Yes, certainly,
Perfect.
I will do that. In the past, I've been sending them on Monday, and so I'll make an effort to send them on Friday.
Okay.
I'll even put a little ticker on my calendar to say, no, it's today.
You're the best. Okay. New business. As I mentioned, we are moving things around slightly. So first part of new business is wastewater treatment plant. I believe this is the first one.
Kind of.
Yep, wastewater treatment plant. Request to,
May,
yeah, ma'am.
may I go on, record to recuse myself?
Absolutely. Brian.
And, yes, Mayor, as you know, during the public hearing, we are proposing to issue this bond up to $925,000. Just to let you know, like Roland stated, the bids for the oxidation ditch came in lower than what we anticipated, which is great news. So what we had included, kind of preliminary in the figures that Roland put together, was $500,000. So the estimated cost of the oxidation ditch is somewhere around $300,000. So what John Rico and I, the Public Utilities Director, were kind of thinking through some upgrades, some equipment that we would need in the next year or two to kind of fill that gap within that $500,000, instead of having to come back and reissue, go through this process again, and next year having to borrow more money to do that within. So that's something y'all need to think about. John and I did talk around lunchtime today on some things he was thinking we would need in the plant that we can include in this financing. So there's surely a couple of $100,000 that we can use with that money that's already, with the debt service up to that $800,000 is already included in the budget that we can borrow. So that's something the Public Utilities Director and I will be thinking more about.
Do we need a list of items before we take the money, or can we just say we'd like the money and we'll have?
That's something I can work out with our Public Utilities Director. But basically, you would be authorizing what the figures that Roland put in there was up to $500,000 for the wastewater plant. So we just having started talking through this Friday and today, we've got a preliminary list of things we could do, but I will send y'all some more information on that.
Okay, but council would retain the right to approve those additional expenses? Okay, perfect. Any questions of the town manager? Is there a motion on the floor to approve? I believe the town manager's recommendation is to adopt the attached bond financing resolution.
Do we have any need to include this 20-some pages of legalese? Is there anything in there that's?
That's just, I'm understanding of a standard bond resolution.
It is,
Okay.
based on the question that I would suggest some flexibility to amend the first paragraph on page 4 if you're, if needed, based on the conversation that will be had with the lender regarding the possibility of restructuring your prepayment alternatives.
If I could add, that was one part of the prepayment provision. I think, Mr. Davis, with your thoughts about potentially prepaying and the ability for the bank that has provided additional flexibility, maybe we add some sentence in there that says that adding on to that paragraph, something to the effect of this prepayment provision or such other prepayment provision that may be more favorable to the town to be negotiated with the bank. I think if you do something like that, maybe does that work from that perspective?
What I had was tell me that I'm at the top of page 4, and you have the resolution in front of you. The town may prepay the principal of the bond at any time on or after December 1st, 2028. Well, and you can even strike that if you want, because it may work out that you negotiate
Right.
some
Something.
even greater flexibility for the prepayment. So you could say prepay the principal of the bond with notice to the lender upon terms and conditions established by the owner.
Can you explain the three words "in whole only" for me?
Yeah, that,
It says the town may prepay the principal of the bond in whole only.
right,
At
right.
any time on or after 2028.
Yes, that was,
That's one of the prepayment terms that was, it was an either or prepayment term.
So that is.
They grabbed one of the prepayment terms, not the second one.
Gotcha. So we'll
So I
have,
think if we rephrase that to give more flexibility, we'll work that, we'll change that prepayment.
are we
and this is
okay?
just an authorizing resolution, so ultimately, if you decided not, if you didn't agree and decided not to do it, then you don't have to.
Correct.
I mean,
You answered my question.
yeah, you have some flexibility in the future if you really didn't work it out and the terms were not favorable. You could go back to the table.
How do you want that motion? Something else?
Motion to adopt the financing bond, the attached bond financing resolution
As amended.
as amended.
Thank you.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Davis, second by Councilman Yates. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so 5 in favor, 1 abstention, 0 against. Thank you. Next up on the list is Dominion Energy request to grant easement.
And with that, I would say this, number one, this is a standard form easement that was provided to us by Virginia Power, which I've reviewed and everything's fine. Number two, if you're going to vote to grant the easement, make sure you all also in your vote authorize Brian or whoever you all want to sign the easement on behalf of the county.
Okay, any questions on that? What is the pleasure of council?
So we have to have a public hearing first, right?
Did that.
Yeah.
We just had the public hearing.
That's where they talk.
Oh, right, gotcha.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Say we hold their feet to the fire on that streetlight deal if we can, but I'll make a motion to go ahead and grant the easement.
Motion by Councilwoman Bowen,
Second.
second by Councilwoman Stinson. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
And you need a motion then to authorize someone to sign it on behalf of the town.
Okay.
I make a motion that Mayor Muskovic or Brian Thrower, either one, be authorized to sign the easement on behalf of town crew.
I'll second that.
Motion second, all in favor, any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, I keep losing everything. So much papers.
Maine Department of Emergency Management.
VDEM, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grants, request to authorize submittal.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, this is actually very exciting, good work to participate in. It's seeking grant money, and I'm working with our newly joined regional, Commonwealth Regional Council, which Nottaway recently joined a few months ago, which is awesome, to prepare an application to the Virginia Department of Emergency Management under the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities BRIC grant program for the acquisition and installation of generators at Town Hall and Public Works, which we do not currently have. And the estimated cost of acquiring and installing the generators is $93,794. Per the grant guidelines, the federal share for this project is 75%. The town will need to be prepared to contribute up to the remaining 25% of the project cost of the water funds for the project. And I do ask that you authorize me to submit the application.
Any questions of the town manager?
Sorry if my math's correct, 23 and 23.5 roughly?
Yes, sir.
Everybody good with spending $25,000?
Just to let you know, these, and the mayor knows better than anybody, these grant programs with FEMA and VDEM move very slowly, so this is not something we would be notified of here anytime soon. This would be next fiscal year or so, where we could budget for it and figure out how to pay for our national.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Street ownership and maintenance. Brian, can you update us on whatever it was we discussed on street ownership and maintenance?
I guess the question that's been raised, just to let everybody, I think I've almost talked to everybody about this that's asked the question. The town, because we are under 3,500 in population, do not own and maintain our streets. VDOT does. 90-some% of them. There are a few random streets that the town owns and maintains. So I guess Phil initiated this question, because I've always worked in the town or city that maintain their own streets. But when I got here, I started looking into it, and the state code says it's got to be over 3,500 population. So we do not maintain our own streets. We do not own our streets, which gets into there are pros and cons with that. Obviously, the pro is you maintain the streets and own them. The con is you maintain and own the streets. But if you do maintain and own your streets, like many cities and towns do, over 3,500 in population, the VDOT does send you annual payments. So, for example, when I was in Emporia, we got over $1 million in VDOT money per year that can go towards staff, maintenance, etc., streets. I think Blackstone gets somewhere close to that. They're a little over 3,500, so they still maintain and own their streets. So I guess the question that the mayor had presented is asked to put it on the agenda. So, that's kind of the background on why we don't maintain and own our streets, I suppose.
So the question would be, what does the cost benefit analysis look like on that? And if it's favorable to us, would we want to ask the General Assembly to exempt us from that 3,500 requirement? And this is something that we don't need to necessarily ask this session, but if it's council's prerogative whether or not we want to continue to look into that and figure out the specific cost benefit analysis. Councilwoman Yates.
I would, but when that money, if we get exempted from that, then what types of things can that money be used for? Can it be used for the cleaning of streets, just for maintenance and repair? Just how far does that?
Anything street related, salaries, your public works department.
To include cleaning the streets, if we're purchasing the
and
street cleaner?
sidewalks.
Oh, pardon?
And sidewalks.
Sidewalks, drainage, milling, paving, potholes, anything.
Is that just
Street related.
the general amount of money that VDOT gives you? or
So
is it reimbursement?
that's the question. I had asked the question of VDOT, and I would thought the residency, since they do own and maintain our streets, could give us a relatively quick, fast answer, but apparently they cannot, because it's the amount of money they send you is based on the road miles, the length, width of the streets, what type of classification they are. So
First and foremost, we have to actually
first and
fix
foremost,
the streets.
we need to
Pay for that.
yeah, we need to figure out what we would get from VDOT if they were even to approve a request to the General Assembly if this is something council wants to do in the future. And that's a question I don't. Nobody seems to know the answer on that.
Phil, you said that would include sidewalks
Uh,
or gutters? But
yes, for both.
sidewalks and gutters.
I would imagine so.
I believe
Any
it.
transportation related.
I believe it includes streets and sidewalks, curb, gutter, drainage. There's a state code section that outlines everything you can use your VDOT maintenance payment for.
But we would need, because if we did that, we would have to have the equipment, the
But
materials.
This is the other side of it. You've got
Yeah.
a lot of expense. You're gonna have to buy equipment,
Exactly.
machinery, people,
Uh-huh.
etc.
How much work, and you probably haven't been there long enough to even be able to measure it, how much work does VDOT do in the town? That breakdown from mom and dad's on Maryland Avenue took them 2 years to fix. So cost benefit analysis is something, yeah, we're gonna need to see. I would take
Yeah.
it for the moment and get some more homework on it, and let's see if it actually, you know, we can't afford a $3 million a year project unless we know we're gonna get that much money back.
So it sounds like, is it the will of council that the town manager look into this, into the specifics more?
If they're available.
I would say yes.
Which I'm already doing with, since VDOT can't provide any information, I've asked Public Works to see if they can put an estimate on what type of streets we have under VDOT's classification, the road miles, the length, the widths. Send that back to VDOT to see if somebody can provide a estimate. I would thought that VDOT would be able to do that since they currently maintain and own the streets, but apparently.
Yeah.
So that's something Diana can get.
What does the head of Public Works think about it? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
Well, we've not discussed it at the council level now. I think this has been mostly with Phil and myself and maybe a few of y'all. But you can't really answer that question. I don't think Tony per se likes it without, because that's obviously putting more work on Public Works. But with that said, if you do start doing this and you have that payment, you could add more staff.
So if we can try to gather as much information before our extended council work session in January, and we can take that under consideration at that time as well, as part of our overall objectives and priorities. Okay, any other questions on that from council? If not, moving on. Virginia Municipal League Christmas Ornament Program. I believe we received 3 entries for the Christmas ornament. So I will send around all 3, and I believe we are voting on them tonight. So we'll start there. Probably should have started that earlier, but here we are.
While we're looking, refresh my memory, were there any specific guidelines other than Christmas Eve?
We should probably sanitize those before we pass it. We all got our masks on, but yeah, we're gonna pass everything around.
Well, it's,
Makes a lot of sense.
well, nothing makes sense these days, Councilman.
I'm gonna prefer.
So,
Are these from the same person?
They are.
those 2 are from, I believe, the same individual, and the third is a third. Specific guidelines, it had to have the name of the crew, had to be something, well, I mean, light enough to hang on a tree. There were specific weight requirements, but that's just all sent by VMA.
So it did have to have something. I sanitized my hands before I came in, just saying. There we go. That's right.
You can slide it on a piece of paper.
What are we, how are we supposed to vote on it if we don't know what they're supposed to be like?
Which ornament do you like the best?
Yes.
I'm operating under the assumption that they all fit within the guidelines.
And eventually they end up on a tree instead of cat.
One of them ends up, whatever one we pick ends up in the Christmas tree in the governor's mansion, or as he calls it, the holiday tree in the governor's mansion.
I'm deferring. You just pick whichever one you want.
And if there's no clear winner, what we'll end up doing is doing like process of elimination. We'll eliminate the bottom one and then vote on the
I
other 2.
have no problem authorizing Mayor Muscovy to make his choice.
I cannot. Yes.
I got to vote.
I should have seen that.
I picked my favorite.
That face says he would have already done it if he was able to.
Okay, so option 1 is the star, snowflake. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Option 2 is the train. And option 3 is the town hall. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it is between the town. Oh,
That means you gotta vote.
I cannot vote
That's
on
your
this.
job. You got a tiebreaker.
I have a conflict of interest.
Oh.
He made the ornaments.
Oh, did you make all of them?
I didn't make any of them. No.
Okay.
Oh, very well. It wasn't
That's a good call here.
Let Brian
Oh,
be the
he's
tiebreaker.
I'm not going to. No, ma'am.
Okay,
Why don't we let
Flip
the
a coin.
citizens-
let's
All right,
let's.
let them
We're,
vote.
exactly. We're gonna now let everyone here vote. So here, we'll have our model come around and like a
Want me to take
Wheel
the
of
poll?
Fortune or
You got all
know,
Oh, okay.
Bob Barker. What's that one?
Alex
Price is
Smith?
Right. So we have the town hall or the snowflake or star or.
Well, they're gonna ask that one.
Okay, so all in favor of the star, please raise your hand. 1 for star. All in favor of the town hall. Looks like the town hall wins. Okay.
Woo!
Perfect.
Yes.
So Brian, if you would please send this according to whatever regulations. And then I believe we do have our town Christmas tree in the town office where and ornaments from the past, we'll stick the others on there. And if we can reach out to the individual who made that, the winning ornament, for her gift card.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay, well, now that the fun stuff is over. Next up on the agenda is item 10A. And I do have something first.
Which one's 10A?
Charter.
Charge. Okay, as council knows, council met at our October meeting and discussed line by line the town manager's proposed charter changes. Council had significant discussion about each proposed change and agreed to include each in a public hearing. The town manager presented for consideration tonight 3 identical proposals, the only differences being council oversight over the police chief. All of the proposals the town manager presented all of the other proposals were taken as a given and remain constant throughout the documents. Each of the town manager's proposals also adds substantive language related to the town clerk that were never discussed by council, never approved for a public hearing, and never included in a public hearing. The last point is most alarming because the town manager's 3 proposals include that substantive language never discussed, nor included in public hearing. So to vote on them tonight would run contrary to public notice laws. Therefore, I'm striking all 3 of the town manager's proposals from the agenda as out of order. Any questions? Okay, council has before you the other format where we go through these, each proposal one by one. And there's been some concern about having a formal resolution versus an informal resolution. So whatever method council wants to discuss for approving each of these is fine by me. But let's start with proposal 1A. Proposal 1A in section 3.1B of the Crew Town Charter, strike the mayor and councilman elected on the first Tuesday of May 1972 shall enter upon their duties on the first, so strike all that, and insert, beginning with the regular municipal election to be held on the first Tuesday in May 2022. The terms of the mayor and council shall be governed as follows. I recommend we accept, and my rationale is there below. What is the pleasure of council?
Can you ask them, are we voting on it? How-
Yeah, like what, I'm
I'm
confused as to what we're
confused.
doing.
Also, I want to remind council, we really don't have to take action on any of this.
That's true.
We don't
Yeah.
have to do any of this,
Yeah.
just so everybody understands.
Though I would recommend that we, if we want to do anything tonight, we at least consider the changing the election laws, the election of council, such that we can have that in place for the before the next election.
We can also re-advertise a public hearing, including the town manager selection, and then we would be able to bring these back up next month. Brian, suggestions? Yes?
So I think the absolute deadline for pre-filing is early January. Ideally, you would have this into the legislators here shortly for December. And just to clarify, on the clerk duties, that was not purposeful. That was when I was going through this, we started talking about who supervises who. And therefore, to clarify what the existing practice is with the town clerk, just like the police chief supposedly that nobody really knows the answer to on who supervises the chief, I added that as a minor edit.
Nevertheless, it was substantive and was not advertised in the public hearing. Do we want to move forward with proposal one? Well, basically, what I did was I broke up one into 3 sections. Proposal one deals with the election. I broke it up into 3 sections in order so that that council can consider whether or not they want both the mayor and members of council on 4-year terms. I would recommend, because the mayor has a significant degree of power, that we institute that checks and balance system and keep the mayor at 2-year terms versus a 4-year term for council.
And I would like to remind somebody, I put at your seat the state code on actions by localities, just so everybody's clear. The state code clearly says there's a difference between ordinances, resolutions, and motions. So anything y'all choose to do or not choose to do can be done by simple voice majority vote.
Of course, it could be done by voice majority vote, but depending on the interpretation of that and the interpretation of the mayor's veto power, the mayor can still veto a simple majority.
Tessie, can we have more information on that, please?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep. Okay, so we have a few things going on here. We have section 3.5 of the town charter that I believe everyone should have in front of them. I know I do at least. And what that says is that the mayor shall have the power of veto over the ordinances and resolutions of the council. So there's that. We also have here 15.2-1425, action by localities. And what this says is that each locality, every locality may adopt as appropriate ordinances, resolutions, but then that also adds motions too, if you all see at the end of 15.2-1425. Additionally, and so what is also operative in this is 15.2-201 and I'll explain why that would even matter. And 15.2-202.
They're not on ours.
Okay, and I have those if anybody would like to look at them. But basically what that does is it authorizes, it just talks about how each town council can change their charter. And so there's 2 different ways that town council can change their charter, not to get into it because that's just kind of miscellaneous, but is an election or it is the public hearing route. So we have the public hearing tonight, and then council can vote after that. The point of it is in 15.2-202, and 201 is, it does not specify that it has to be by ordinance, by resolution, or by motion. It just says, that town council has to vote to change it, and then it goes on to say, how it should be presented after that to the General Assembly.
Tessie, what is the legal definition of a resolution?
I looked at the legal definition of the resolution today, and I looked it up on legaldictionary.com because I tried to find the definition as it was in the code, and I could not find a definition for a resolution per se in the code. But if you all want, I can pull it up and read at least what the legal dictionary definition is.
I'll make a motion that we table it and have the mayor and the town manager come together and provide us with something that we can vote on.
Motion by Councilman Reed to table. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion, second by Councilwoman Stinson. Any discussion? All in favor?
Opposed?
And all opposed?
I would like clarification on section 4A.
I'm sorry, there's a
Yeah,
motion on it. We're in the
vote.
middle of the vote, and it sounds like there's 3, 2,
One, right?
1.
Opposed, but I wanna, was it counter motion?
Counter motion.
I want to, is that's the correct?
The motion on the floor is already under being voted on, so
I
it's
said
too
opposed.
late. Okay, Councilman Davis?
Couldn't vote yea to table it until we get some clarification.
Thank you. Okay, this is tabled. Moving on.
But does that mean I can't make a motion
That's correct.
on,
Is it passed? It's tabled now to the next.
a counter motion? I still can't make a counter motion? I can. I wanna make a counter motion.
Not when it was seconded and we were in the middle of her time to make that would be during discussion of the motion. And it's a substitute motion. Unfinished business, 100 West Carolina Avenue. Brian?
Yes, I'm recommending y'all don't take any action at this immediate time.
Okay. Any comments, questions, concerns?
Another question.
Yes, ma'am.
For how long? Do we have any type of timetable as to the repairs that are going
So we'll be
to the front of that building?
discussing that here shortly.
Okay.
Oh, slow.
Okay. Any other new business or continuing business before council? Any public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Kathy Parker, on behalf of 100 West Carolina Avenue. I told you guys I will be bringing you some news every meeting. So, we're almost there with our building permit. So, we got the structure engineer, and it's 2 components. And so I emailed Brian to let him know that they're on the second component, which is the architectural part where they have to do the drawings. And the structural engineer is backlogged. He's about to retire in a month. And he's probably one of the best ones. So I brought you the email so you can see him. So when you're in your closed session, you can make the best decision of choice, because that's the only thing. The building inspector, Dean, has his whole packet. It's just that one little half that's missing. And then we can start our work. So I need this back. I didn't make copies for everybody and kill trees. And so I just want you, if you can just, vouch for it, that this is what this says. Because I paid money for this little report, now.
Kathy, I got you stuff on the column. I have swamp right now, but I will try and get you the stuff in a few days. Michael R. Foster, PE at Dunbar, Milby, Williams, Pittman, and Vaughn. Consulting structural engineers.
Yes, and that's the first half of the report that he gave me, and then the second part will say if what we're doing on the structure is down. And so, that's it, that's my little report. As far as the timeline, we can't give a timeline until we get the full engineer report. And then that will tell us about the awning, because that's the main concern. The structural pole is the easy part, it's just keeping the awning up. So once we get the graph, then we'll know how to hold it. So, yeah, that's it. Any questions on that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Hearing none. We are going to go into closed session, but beforehand, I would want to wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans, and enjoy your holidays. At this time, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A8. Discussion of consultation with legal counsel regarding the specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice pertaining to fees imposed by Nottaway County and property maintenance issues at 100 West Carolina Avenue. And Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A1, personnel discussion of council appointees. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved and second, all in favor? We are in closed session. Thank you everyone for coming. Okay, we are now out of closed session. At this time, I will need a motion to, we need to certify that all we discussed in closed session related to Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A8, consultation with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice pertaining to fees imposed by Nottaway County and property maintenance issues at 100 West Carolina Avenue, and Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1, personnel as it relates to council appointees. We'll start with Councilwoman Yates.
Certified.
Certified. Reed.
Certified.
Stinson.
Certified.
Davis.
Certified.
Certified.
Foss. Thank you. Is there any other business before council?
Negative.
Hearing none. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Reed, second by Bowen.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.